My name is Rachel Nealon. I'm a professor in the Department of Mathematics and Computer Science here at Duquesne University. And on behalf of the Greffenstadt Center and all of the organizers, I'd like to welcome you to the 2025 Hacking for Humanity Policy and Tech Hackathon. And as you already know, right, the hackathon is focused on confronting and combating online hate. And it's really inspiring to see all of you who have come together, united in that cause to combat online hate and build more inclusive, diverse online communities. So we're really proud of all the work you've done, and we really look forward to seeing your tech and policy proposals. But before we do that, let me remind you of some of the rules for today. First, each team or individual will have exactly 3 minutes to present their work. And we are rather strict with time, so we have a countdown in the back. You'll see the clock. You'll be able to see how much time you have remaining, and you'll hear a buzzer go off at the end of that 3 minutes. Now, all of your slides are pre-loaded on the computer up here, but you are welcome to bring your laptops up and attach through an HDMI cord if you have something else you want to show. If you are showing a video, please note that you have to remain on stage while the video is playing, and it does count towards your 3 minutes. After your presentation, we have 3 judges who will use up to 5 minutes to follow up with you any questions they have about your project. So our 3 judges, I'll introduce them. We have Annie Latsko, who's a senior software engineer from Microsoft. We have Sadie Smiles, who's a digital services director for the governor's office. And we have Reese Reese, who's a computer information science instructor for CCAC. So welcome, judges, and thank you for giving your time. All right, we will get started. So before every presentation, I will tell you the name of the team or individual who's presenting, and I'll also give a heads up to the next one so that the following team can kind of just mentally prepare. So first up, starting us off for the 2025 hackathon will be Team Shield AI. So I'll have that team walk up to the podium, and then following them will be Team Ketchup. So Team Ketchup, I'll call you up later. But Team Shield AI, you can come up now.
Hello.
Okay, so
I just have one.
Thank you. I have a tiny script. Perfect.
Okay. So you keep it here. No, first we will show the presentation, right? Then we will show the presentation to kind of. Okay?
Yeah, they have it preloaded, right?
yes, and now we need to. Oh, you want to get your slides here?
Oh, yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
just use the mouse.
We have to present the slides here.
OOE.
Oh, here it is. No, it is not our slides.
Oh yeah, if
Probably
you
not.
exit out of there. And then,
I guess this is it. No.
yes, and then you can find your team.
Give
Go
me
down.
The mouse is too sensitive. Shield.
This one.
Yeah, yeah,
You went your presentation, perfect. And you're doing tech, right? Yep. Perfect.
Okay. Presenter view. Where is
I'll let
it?
you set up. Take your time.
Just
Which is the presenter view?
just present. Present.
Yeah. Hello everyone, good afternoon. We are Team Shield AI and I'm Navina. This is Jana, Manikya and Gokul. We are master's student at Pitt, and Manikya here is a master's student in AI, and all of us are a master's in animation science. I'm excited to present in this hackathon, which is, our project is called Shield AI. I'm so sorry. Okay, so every time we go on the internet, we come across a lot of words which we did not intend to look at. And if we are trying to show something to our kids or in schools or in any kind of an international conference where there might be pop-ups which has very offensive words or slurs, you might need to filter it out, but you would not know what words will be coming out or popping up. So if there is a filter which is live and which filters out all kind of racial slurs or offensive words or vulgar words in real time while it is being displayed, it will be a very good idea, and which is ours. So we have a fully developed prototype of both backend and the front end, the front end is public. So we can filter out all the words, whichever words which you type in, and also all of its variants, not just one word. For example, if we say a word as ugly, the word uglier, ugliest, ing, past tense, everything else will also get censored out. And this is because of our NLP tool, which we have used. And in the future, we also can easily make this as a Google extension, which could filter out literally all the words which comes up in your Google screen, literally on the World Wide Web. And we can also use LLM models, which we can use for any language which is on the earth. We have our prototype ready, which we can present right now.
Yeah, difficulty in connecting the Wi-Fi, so it's getting disconnected.
Oh, we just have a Wi-Fi issue, so sorry.
If we disconnected it, can we call her?
Yeah, can we have someone for? I'm so sorry for the delay. We did not get our Wi-Fi passwords.
Authentication failed by NG route. Okay, it's fine. Leave it then. We are facing some technical difficulties in solution. I'll show you the. Yeah, show it.
Okay.
You can show the UI first.
We have the front-end user interface. We have just a few connectivity issues with the Wi-Fi.
Show this front end alone. This one, this one, this one.
It will censor it out, right?
இப்போ இது ஒர்க் ஆகாதுல நான் முன்னாடி சொல்லிடுறேன். We can show that in back end. Sure.
Show the limiting variables. Nope, there we go. Let's allow that. Okay, it's your second desktop. So you just go under here and navigate to displays. You navigate to your displays and just mirror your displays. That's all you have to do.
What?
Oh, I see.
It is there.
Yeah.
Minimize the screen and push it to the right screen. Minimize that. Doing
Yep, minimize that.
and put it
slide it over.
more just to that thing.
I'm just sure which way we need to go.
That side.
There we go. And then it's full screen. There it is.
You can tell me this UI. Yeah, you can tell Navina.
There you go.
Okay, so this is our public interface where you can type in a text which is on the top, and the censor text will come on the bottom. But since we have the Wi-Fi issue still going on, we could not censor it, but we have it ready when we present it to the judges. But we also have the backend and everything ready. The thing is, when you see a few words on the input, our model is different from other AI models because it not only just censors that word, but also all of its variants. And in the future, which is very easily deployable, we can just use the entire code and put it as a Google extension. So when you open up any page on the web and when you want a few words to be censored, you can just put it on the input text and also in the bottom in the brownish text, where you can just filter out the word which you want to filter and censor it. So the entire page in your web or any kind of the Google page or Yahoo page, it'll get filtered out and all of its variants. Thank you. We have the backend, which we wanted to show you, but since we had the Wi-Fi issue, we cannot connect both of it. Yep, so this is the entire NLP, the data set. So as long as we input all kinds of words which you want to put, we found out most of the words which we could, but we couldn't come out with like thousands of bad words. So all the words, whichever you add in, it'll get censored out in live, like in real time. Thank you.
Thank you, Shield AI. Okay, I'll turn it over to the judges.
Hi, thank you so much for your guys' presentation. This is really cool. My first question is, how do you anticipate the overall word list being chosen? Once it scales?
We use NLP model. We used static embedding here, where we have a predefined model. And also what it does is that it finds the relative word to that word, and it finds the probability of the relative words. It will give a top 15 high probability word, and it will censor it.
So language is very constantly evolving. There's new slang all the time. How do you anticipate, how would you intend to accommodate, for example, new slurs? For example, people on League of Legends or other video games are constantly trying to figure out how to call people something not very nice without actually getting dinged by the censors. How would you kind of pick that up automatically?
Presently, we have only used the NLP model, but what our future scope is that we will integrate it with LLMs, which will provide a prompt to LLM using this list and also a sentence, so that it can provide convert that word to a specific word which can be not a harsh word from the LLM, and then we will display it in our website.
Cool.
It will not only used as a website, we can use it as an extension in the Google too, where it can convert that censor word to a particular relevant word.
How will you address any biases in the AI model that you're using, either racial biases or anything like that?
Presently we are using static embedding, but LLM use a contextual embedding. So what we are planning is that we are using both static as well as contextual, so that it removes biases of the words. There will be some biases, but not as much biases as if we use a single technique.
Thank you.
Hello. You spoke briefly at the beginning about how this might be used, for example, as a tool for educators or in a classroom setting. I'm curious if you could speak a bit more about how you see this implemented, some maybe specific examples of where this might be implemented outside of an educational setting.
It can use by parents too, where if parents want to do some parent control activities to the kids, they can use this website. They can censor out all the bad words like hate words, ugly words, and convert it to a relevant using the LLMs from our model. So there are multiple use cases.
And also, if we can also use it for content moderation. And the fact where we are different from all the other AI filters is that it's very controlled. So you can control out specific words which you want and all of its variants. And if you don't want a few variants which you don't want to censor it, you can also control it. So it's very, in a sense, user-friendly and controlled for the moderators or parents or educators to use.
How did you choose your LLM model?
We went for an open source model, Olama 3.2, which is open source. We don't have to pay anything on that. We could have used GPT-4, but it's a paid version. But since it's a free version, it takes a lot of time for connectivity.
Cool, thank you. When this becomes an extension, are you thinking, is there going to be like one central list of words, or are you considering having people control it on like an individual level?
Yeah, the model mainly focus on the text file we input. Like presently we have only choose around 400, 450 words, but in future we can connect it to a database, and we can have a lot more of word, like each time the new trends come out, new type of word comes in, so we can put that in the DBMS database, and we can censor those kind of words.
And also to answer your question directly, we were thinking more of localized than a central one, so that there's not many data breach, and the companies can hold their data and they do not give it to us.
Even when the extension is provided, we can actually pass the data of the website, and then we can provide the keywords as we showed in the censor text, right? We can pass the text of the website, and then we can provide it to LLM.
All right, thank you. That's all the time we have for questions. So let's thank Team AI one more time. Team Ketchup, you are next. And Hack Street Boys, you'll be following them.
We're going to be using the preloaded slide. Oh, yes, go first.
And then you can open up your presentation now. You want to scroll down to whatever you uploaded. So
We go up.
Ketchup. Is that Team Ketchup?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Finally, okay.
Right there.
Snap.
Yeah.
And
Are you doing tech or policy?
policy.
Okay. I'll introduce you. All right, next up is Team Ketchup presenting their policy proposal.
Afternoon, everyone. We are Ketchup, and today we proposed tackling cyberbullying through community engagement practices for teens. For those that don't know, cyberbullying is the repetitive and intentional inflictions of harm to someone online. It can come in the form of dark jokes, false rumors, and threats. You might think, how prevalent is this still in teens? Approximately 40 to 70% of teens are still exposed to degradation online. And as recent as 2023, a national survey states that regardless of gender, half of them have been cyberbullied in their lifetime. And sadly, 25% of them were being cyberbullied at that time. And it's such a big issue because there's a direct correlation between depression and anxiety in teen and a major contributor of youth suicides and violent crimes. Historically, research suggests real-life isolation causes cyberbullying. The more hours spent online and the less time that they are spending building those trustworthy relationships, the more likely they are to be engaged and experience cyberbullying.
So, what can we do? First, we propose creating a statewide cyberbullying task force. The existing task forces, as you see on the right, focus on law enforcement. In contrast, ours focus on prevention and community building. This task force enables sustained collaboration between teachers, researchers, and local organizations, ensuring that everyone has a voice in this conversation. Second, we recommend scenario-based training for cyberbullying. Teenagers do know cyberbullying is wrong and risky. However, they often fail to act on that knowledge. By engaging them and helping them practice responding to various cyberbullying scenarios, they are equipped to act whenever those scenarios occur in real life.
Our third recommendation is to increase community engagement in schools. We're hoping to do this via bi-weekly assemblies with local organizations such as the YMCA, animal shelters, and more. We hope that these organizations engaging with students will lead to increased social interaction and help students practice navigating their differences when it comes to engaging with people in the community that look, think, and behave differently than themselves. Now, this proposal would cost about $20 million, and we're getting this research from the states listed here. And while this seems like a lot, it's actually less than 0.004% of the new education budget. We believe this would be a worthy investment into a safer Commonwealth. To end, we're hoping to combat cyberbullying by transforming social isolation into social connectedness for our communities. Thank you.
Hello. In your proposal, you discussed some things that you'd like to have done, for example, mandating a digital literacy curriculum. I think it's a great idea, but I also know that it's difficult to mandate schools to do something through the Department of Education. Typically, it's simply provided as a recommendation. So I'd be curious to hear how we might entice schools to introduce this curriculum. What's the benefit to them to, develop a new track? How do we get them to buy into it?
Yeah, sure. So like when during our research, the major problem that schools encounter from our research is that schools are often face financial constraints. So some ways that we can entice them would be to use what we call the ESSA Act, Every Student Succeeds Act. What that means is that traditionally, there are some federal grants called Title I that allow schools that serve low-income students to help them for education or academic interventions. The ESSA Act provides more stability and focus more on holistic outcomes, such as community building and soft skills. So we think that with that ESSA Act, we can introduce them and ensure that for schools, if they implement this type of curriculum, they can get extra and more well-rounded support besides academic intervention.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. So I think your solution and explanation for how schools buy in is great. How do you anticipate having kids actually get on board with this?
Yeah, so obviously kids have a lot of different time constraints. They might have to study, they might work another job. We're hoping that we can put into place some type of reward system where if kids are able to engage with their community more, we're hoping to have some sort of, like we mentioned in our proposal, possibly if they're able to engage with their community more, possibly receive some rewards from their school, or even some students we're hoping can be selected, possibly go to the governor's office, talk about what they've done, generally just trying to help students see the benefit of engaging with their community. And once they start, we hope that they kind of feel more engaged, they feel like they belong to their community more, and also, of course, like other rewards, like going to the governor's office and other school fundraisers and stuff like that.
Cool, thank you. Sorry. So I'm trying to think. So there are a lot of research and a lot of other programs that have kind of thought about this. And I know that you talked about how they're largely law enforcement based, like the ones that are actually existing. So the important thing about the cyberbullying prevention is that there also do have to be obvious consequences in order to prevent cyberbullying in the first place. For example, a lot of cyberbullying happens in walled garden environments. That's not easy to see, private Discord groups, group chats, stuff like that. How do you anticipate this actually integrating and making its way into those walled garden situations?
So those platforms, usually the kids are joining Discord and like Facebook groups through people that they know. And the more time that they spend with the community, the more time that they actually get that interpersonal connectedness to that person, and they're less likely to say those hateful things because, they understand that person, and it's less likely for them to say those hurtful things. I wouldn't say it to my mom. They wouldn't say it to their best friend. They would say it to their friend that they know.
Cool, thank you.
Hi. How will you define cyberbullying and what is permitted or not permitted language, especially in terms of the discrepancy between protected classes on a state level and a federal level?
Can you clarify the last part about the difference?
So our federal government has declared Title IX, has made a lot of changes to Title IX, I guess barring protections for trans students specifically. So how would you address transgender cyberbullying, considering that Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh have methods or laws in place, but the federal government does not?
I see. Yeah, so I think that this question obviously requires a lot of ongoing conversation because the issue of transgenderism is so politicized these days. So what we focus on is, the main emphasis of our policy is to avoid issues that are controversial and focus on issues that people have political capital and willingness to engage. So in these cases, for community building initiatives, you can see that it's quite easy to build support, very different parties to engage in this conversation. And for specifically the difference in the enforcement between at the state level and the federal level, we think that this obviously needs to require the advice from the Office of General Counsel and how about the legalities of these issues. But specifically for our recommendation, we don't anticipate major tensions between the existing laws at the federal level and also at the state level.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our time for questions. Thank you, Team Ketchup. Next up, Hack Street Boys, and then following them is AGT.
And if there's a way to keep the volume low, since ours is a video.
Oh, let's find out. Hack Street Boys. I don't think you'll have an issue with the volume. I don't think it'll be too high. I'm worried about it not being high enough.
Well,
It's just
we'll
like
speak over
background
it.
music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
I
fine.
get it. I get it.
Yeah. So if there's any way to just
Yeah,
make
it
it
seems
so
like
wanna-
the volume's not too bad.
This one has audio. I'll start the clock again.
It's all right. Present, do you have anything else other than this?
Yeah. Not to present.
Not to present? Okay. I'm just going to go for the screen for you guys here. There's the play button or space bar when you're ready to go, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, next up, Hack Street Boys with their tech proposal.
So I am Sarah,
And I'm Addie, and we are the Hack Street Boys.
And we are presenting a project called Clever Content, which is a personalized content filter, and it allows users to have control over what they can see and not see on social media.
So this content filter is going to be a Chrome extension, and it basically will give users control over their content. They can put in keywords and choose what they want to blur out, or whether they want it to be flagged or want the entire page to be blocked.
And this is useful since social media often is an environment cultivating hate. And so this can help users have control over their environment.
And here's a demo.
Here you can see the extension's engagement with the site by using JavaScript injection.
And here you can type in the keywords that you want to hide, so we put in a couple here just for a demo. So we've also created a few themes that have a couple of words that go within each theme. So hate speech, violence, drugs.
Now, while the themes aren't fully developed in their content, that is something that would expand as use of the extension continues and be based off of user need. And there would be an option to either completely remove the content or simply flag it with a warning. And I think that community inclusion is very important in any sort of solution. So here we would hear back from the community by searching our data and also collaborate with advocacy groups and hear their needs.
The goal of this project in general is to reduce harmful content and create a safer space online. And we're achieving that the content gets filtered out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is your platform audience parents, teachers, or just individuals looking to better their own mental health?
The main audience would be individuals. I think there are a lot of these platforms that are specifically geared towards children, and that can often make a resistance towards using it because people don't want their parents telling them what to do. But in this case, it's an individual choice. And while it can be used by anyone, parents and educators, the fact that it's an individual choice makes people more conscious about their actions online.
Thank you. How would this program, what does it look like when something is filtered out? Is it totally removed? What does it look like?
There are two options to remove it or either to flag it. We did struggle with this because we needed to use injection into the site, and there were some complications with matching our code to the code that would allow that on each individual website. However, there would be a few different modes that the user can select.
So how would it handle, for example, Instagram posts can get really long. How would it handle a mix of hateful, maybe, for example, eating disorder content? Maybe the user doesn't want to see numbers, but they do want to see the overall post to support that person who's maybe in recovery. How would it handle a mixed content situation?
So we also thought about implementing for future purposes just a way where you can see what exactly has been flagged, so you can go ahead and choose whether you think that it should be flagged or not. So you can choose whether you want it to either just have a pop-up saying that this content has been filtered out or just entirely hide it. And it's based on whatever preference the user has, which we haven't fully implemented yet, but that was the idea and the goal.
Hello. Have you thought at all about the potential that this kind of tailoring could lead to an echo chamber, essentially, where I'm only seeing things that I want to see, and maybe unintentionally just reinforces my beliefs even more?
Yes, while this is a possibility, the fact that it is the user's own choice and then also allows them to view content if they choose that has been filtered out and decide if it should be filtered or not can help prevent this, but also I think it will be very important to have a human component when developing this in the future. So having developers from different backgrounds working on it, and especially with the themes, with developing the certain themes, and there could be different themes for different times of the year as well that could help promote different ideas and backgrounds.
I apologize if you already addressed this, but is this going to be coming from a central database or training set of like possible like collected words, or is this going to be entirely controlled by the user?
So the themes would have, what we would probably do is have like a certain set amount of words based on each theme, but the keywords that we're typing in would be controlled by the user.
And the themes in the future, like I had mentioned previously, they will start off being only central, but then they will develop based on common words that users are choosing to input.
Will there be a way to prevent users from using this in the opposite direction? For example, filtering out words that include the word filtering out content that, for example, includes the word transition or something related to trans people or something positive. How will you prevent that from? How will you prevent your platform from being used in the opposite direction?
I think that while it will be difficult to code this into the project, that there should be community integration into the interface to help promote open-mindedness.
What would you expect this community to look like? Like what kind of platform? How would you gather this input from the community?
I think that that would be mainly based off of the themes currently.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Team Hackstreet Boys. Next up, we have AGT, and then following them, we have Kayla DeTore. So AGT. Let's see, I'll let you click that presentation. Perfect. Where's the cord? Oh, okay, perfect. Hi.
Right here. You're good. You're good.
Yes, we
Okay. And then we're just going to switch over inputs. Just going to just blink real quick. It'll take like maybe 10 more seconds. And then, yep, we're just going to switch modes.
Oh, what? Switch mode.
Yep, yeah, you're fine. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
You good?
Yeah. Okay.
Just make sure you guys speak in the microphone. Okay.
I think so. Yeah. Okay, again, this is Team AGT speaking in the tech track.
I'm sorry.
Oh, wait.
Oh, which one is the?
It's this. Oh, wait. This is my mouse.
Because I want.
Is it not switching over?
Thank you.
Okay. So this is our effortless fact-checking solution for social media. And our solution is focusing.
It's not working.
It's not.
Sorry.
Okay. The slide's not changing. That should be fine. I don't know why.
Go with this.
just have to like.
So this is the, so you have to do it up here, right? Should work. Nope.
Yeah, I think what you have to do is you have to like wait for this to pop up and use that
Okay.
arrow.
Yeah, as long as you can get this one.
Can we see if the prototyping working?
I think it will.
Take a while.
Takes a little bit. It still gets there though. Okay.
We need to
Sorry. Go back. Okay. All right. So this is our effortless fact-checking solution for social media. Our area of focus was on disinformation and its connection to online hate. It's a third-party fact-checker for platforms that integrates fact-checking process into social media browsing experience. And the reason we came up with this is because disinformation is often created with the intent to inflict harm and then unintentionally spread by those who believe it. So the wider the information spreads, the easier it is for the initial harmful intent to be carried out. So how do we change that? Our theory is that a simple fact-checking step can help. If people don't believe the disinformation, the harmful intent behind it can't be achieved. Through our research, we found some things such as like people browse social media for entertainment, so they rarely fact-check because they don't really want to leave the platform. So as our solution, we decided to have a disinformation flag underneath the post, and once it loads, you can see that the first example has one content that is a disinformation, and then the second one provides 3 different categories of disinformation. So fabricated content, manipulated content, and false context shown by the different colors. And then there's also a pop-up screen to explain each type of disinformation and the purpose of the fact-checking feature. So our users, or social media platforms in general, so those are the people who will be implementing this feature, but also people who use social media and think that fact-checking is a hassle. We involve these users by interviewing them, and then our solution is based off of the problems that they identified for us. So our next steps would be to test this with more people and see it on different platforms, because we mostly just focused on Instagram for now, just to make sure that it worked. And then so essentially our goal was to make fact-checking as effortless as possible, and also to encourage users to fact-check the information that they see online. So whether they spend time reviewing the details or not, at least they were exposed to fact-checking, and they don't have to leave the platform to actually then fact-check, so that it doesn't like ruin their social media experience, but they still see the disinformation. So yeah, so I think we'll go back to the demo just to, since we have a little time, just to talk about it a little bit more.
We need to load it. Sorry.
So for this second example, I just want to go into more detail how it like highlights the disinformation, and in the different colors it'll show you that, oh, this content was manipulated, and then this content was fabricated. So there's an AI process that is being used to detect this, and users can also say this is accurate or this wasn't accurate. So thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Okay, cool. So you say that you're going to be fact-checking. What's going to be your source of truth for what is true and what's not true?
Okay, we're gonna compare that news that's manipulated or fabricated news with the news which is provided in some trustworthy sources, like other medias or other newspapers that worked on that particular news, and we know that they are trusted.
So I need to add that we use AI for this technology, and then for each categories of this information, they will use different techniques. For example, fabricated content, they will use for image or video. AI can analyze to see if the image or video is a result of Photoshop or AI generated. So for content, they can track back to the event to see if it's really happened. For manipulated content, they can do like reverse image, video, audio, and content search and compare it with original one. And for false context, they can also do reverse content search to summarize the original source to see if the original have different meaning. Yeah, thank you.
Hello. Is this something that you would be encouraging the social media company to integrate into the platform themselves? Or is this a third-party app that I'm downloading and using as I'm scrolling?
We know that so far that some social media platforms have this feature, but they just, I don't know, for instance, Meta had this feature just this January, but for some reason they kind of put it out of the Meta, Instagram and Facebook, and we know that this is something that social medias usually have, but it's not, maybe it's not visible to users yet.
Yeah, so our solution is to make it visible to users and make sure that user can use the results of these existing fact checker so they can understand more and don't really hate on other people because of the disinformation. And yeah, thank you.
A follow-up question, sorry. What's the threshold for when you would apply this note that says this is untrue, this is true? Is it something that's happening, as soon as something goes up and it's untrue? Is there, once it, reaches a certain audience, what's the threshold?
Generally, like whenever it would come up, so whenever a post is first posted, then this would flag it and say this could potentially be disinformation, and here's the conflicting sources that we're finding across the internet.
And
Thank you.
We
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. We will have the AI check to see if the posts have news or is the news, and then they will fact check it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as y'all know, with disinformation, deepfakes are a big part of that. Are you planning on integrating any kind of deepfake detection into your systems?
Probably it's going to be for next steps because it's pretty new. As I mentioned, even Meta worked on this feature, but for some reason pulled it out from their platform. So probably in the future, yes.
Thank you.
Hi, me again. So I think part of, as you mentioned yourself, social media is, these large companies are trending away from allowing these kinds of fact checking and leaning more towards community notes. So letting people, submit their own version of the truth, let it be upvoted or downvoted. I'm curious, how would you maybe convince a company to use this over those kinds of community notes when they're leading away from it seemingly for maybe financial or political reasons?
So I think it's preventing online hate and disinformation is everyone's responsibility, and so is social platforms. So we develop these solutions to solutions for they to improve their interface so that all users can use it. And I think it's easier for their user also. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the time we have. Let's thank AGT again.
Thank you.
Up next is Kayla DeTore, and following Kayla will be Ethics and Tech Bits.
presentations there.
Oh, yeah. Mine crashed while I was submitting it.
Your own device, or no, sorry, just gotta switch it over.
Okay.
Just give it a second. Clicker walked away. Ooh. If someone has the clicker accidentally, I'd like it back. There's brief. You never saw it? Oh, well, we'll have to find that. All right. You should be good to go. Okay.
Awesome, thanks.
All right, next up is Kayla DeTore speaking on the policy track.
Hi everyone, my name is Kayla DeTore. I'm an undergraduate here at Duquesne studying political science and international relations. And today I'm going to be going over my policy of the Hate Speech Mitigation Initiative. So I'm going to be targeting X, the company formerly known as Twitter. This is a privately owned social media company. You can connect thoughts with one another. And my policy is aimed towards this company, but it can also be implemented to other companies. The problem here that we're focusing on is hate speech. Hate speech is ever present in our society today. And especially with the use of social media, it's becoming more and more prevalent and easier to spread this hate speech, which is seen on the company X, as according to Forbes, that a lot of people are leaving this app to go to other competitors such as Blue Sky because of the toxic rhetoric that it produces. So my policy here is that I do believe that X's guidelines listing out what they consider hateful conduct are correct, but they don't have any implementation of what they do with it. Sometimes they just hide it, filter it, you can still see it. Most of the time they don't ban accounts or even take the content down that's hateful, as in the case, as you can see, in Kanye West. They outline purposely saying how you can't dehumanize other groups, but even on my For You customized page, it's coming up. They're not censoring this at all. So I believe that we should implement a 3-strike system. Your first offense, if you get a post taken down, you get a warning for hate, if it's for hateful misconduct. Second offense, you get a temporary suspension of your account, and third offense would be a permanent ban of your account. How to implement this? We're going to use an AI technology that will originally flag the content, and then we're going to have a human team review these flags and decide whether or not the posts need to be reviewed or removed. And also, there's going to be ability for those who's got their content removed to reach out to the human moderators, email them if they have a dispute. We should implement this immediately. The sooner there's a stop to hateful content, the better online communities will be better. Why should we do this? A safer online environment, increased revenue for X, and then increased users. Promoted goods, HSMI will directly impact marginalized communities such as racial, ethnic minorities, LGBTQ+ individuals, religious groups. And then this will indirectly benefit all others because creating a better community and a safer, more respectful will be better for everyone. This will also include making X more successful because according to the Edison research, in the last year, they've lost 30% of US users. And also, according to Fidelity, of their valuation has decreased by 80%. So they're losing money. Conclusion, we need to implement stricter moderation on X to help mitigate hate speech, and this policy will also promote a safer online environment for a platform and help gain more users for this company. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. So we've seen other tech founders state that they did not like people, like any outsiders trying to influence what was posted, what their moderation was, what got taken down. What makes you think that Elon Musk will buy into this?
Because currently his terms and services, they outline, I think, are great outlines of what they consider hateful conduct. But there is nothing actually implemented to stop what he has set forth. I also think that this will be just great beneficially for his business overall with the loss of users, the loss of the value in the company, people stating because of this hateful conduct is the reason why they're leaving, less advertisers. So I think this would just be beneficial for the company as a whole due to statistics and research that will bring up the value of the company.
You mentioned having an appeals process and having humans actually like go through and review the post. Who's going to pay for that?
I was thinking of gathering donations and people that actually put forth this initiative to send in place for the policy. Twitter, if it increases the value, if we get more users, that can also be put forth to it due to ad revenue.
How will you address biases in AI and human decision-making throughout this process?
That's why I believe that having AI first flag it and then having a trained team come and see this content, decide for themselves, and then that's also why we have the appeals process too. If someone believes and they can make a good argument that their post shouldn't have been removed, then I believe this team should be able to recognize and see that as trained individuals.
Thank you.
Who's gonna who's gonna make the training? I guess like how do you actually get the moderators to remove their own personal biases?
I believe that you, through an interviewing process, you could tell usually when you see a person, ask them about the questions, therefore, and then you get set forth the training through unbiased sources. There are already initiatives and groups that do this for community basis of eliminating biases, so I believe if you go through that training, they could also do this for their work.
Hello. My question, I think we asked it also earlier to another group, but I'm curious, how would you define hate speech? How is the content moderation, where's the starting point for the basis of it?
I believe that in the X's terms and service, they line it out perfectly, in my opinion. My whole policy is on what to actually do when they find this hate speech instead of just putting a little censored if you can still click it. I believe we should be taking down this content and then after 3 strikes banning it. So X has guidelines talking about demonetization, incitement, against just hate speech against marginalized groups. It's all listed in their terms and services.
Thank you.
No problem.
How do you, so you mentioned about this expanding to other platforms. Do you have any idea of like what platform you would want to target next?
I think now, especially what's going on, I think we should focus on Meta next, but I believe that X is probably the #1 priority in this case, as many have seen what allowed to be put up there from Twitter turned to X. We kind of want to bring back the Twitter user base, the value that it had then and the users that it had as a successful company.
So you've spoken highly of how Twitter defines what hate speech is. Other platforms, I believe, have different definitions. Do you think about applying like one central one or using each individual company's terms?
Yeah, I think it should be based on the company.
Okay.
I don't think I should be the one changing that.
If Elon Musk or any other tech founder is resistant to this idea, how do you intend on like genuinely selling it to them?
I just gave you a few simple sources before, but there's plenty of research that's gone into this on how much money that X is actually losing. And Elon Musk himself is a businessman, so I think he finds value in having a successful business. And I think he also finds value in validation. So if people actually see that X is doing better, and that validation will make him feel good as a person. So I think he really thrives off of that too.
No, that's a really good point, and I like your sources were really good. But like, sorry, what would actually what person, what organization is doing this? Who's doing it?
Me as the hate speech mitigation initiator.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Kayla. Next up is Ethics and Tech Bits, and following them will be Era Froman. Are you plugging your own computer in? Okay, perfect. I'll let you go ahead, isn't it?
when I go to do the demo and I do like end show, it should still be connected, right?
Okay, we have ethics and tech bits presenting on the tech track.
Hi, this is Block It, which is a harmful speech monitoring system for schools, faculty, and administrators to moderate their sources without limiting their students' access to information. Our main problem statement is that students' ability to access educational resources, including assigned readings and their own personal readings, is often restricted due to their school-mandated laptops. And so instead, teachers and students will be able to access these sources with the proper filtering.
So for our objective, we wanted to create an extension that teachers could use in order to prepare like articles that they would assign to their children where they could either flag, block, or report the words. And then we also wanted to give students the option to filter out any words on a page, and also ideally teachers could use this when showing like their students different like web pages if they wanted to blur specific content.
Yeah, so the word flagging JavaScript file basically takes in a set of school district mandated words. And so often elementary and middle schools are within a similar district. And so they would choose the words that they do not want on these school given out laptops, put it hard code into it to file, and then when it's run on whatever academic source, it would automatically flag and report those words.
And then for the pop-up JavaScript file, we're actually injecting into the current website, and we're taking like the HTML that's existing within there, and then we're making it possible to like blur the different words using CSS.
Okay. The options are important because it gives the options to replace, report, or ignore a word. And so replacing a word, as what you'll see soon in our demo, gives it a more helpful alternative that still gives away the same meaning, but without the harmful words. And then the report ones would completely block out the word, and ignore would be the teacher understanding that this word can be produced and given out to students.
So then for integration into the school system, this would be primarily used by teachers and faculty in order to like regulate what their students are viewing, but we want to keep the atmosphere of like not blurring everything, like because usually with schools like they either block a page or they don't, and this gives the option to still expose the children to that knowledge. And it also makes it so that students are in charge of their own, like if they want to filter specific words or something like that, that can be done.
Okay, to our demo.
All right. So for the pop-up here, this is just like a random Wikipedia article that I pulled up. Okay, so let's say I don't want the word kill in here. It blurs it, so it's not present in the article.
It's not showing.
Oh,
sorry. We didn't know it wasn't showing. Oh.
Can you see it? Oh.
There we go.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
Sorry, you're going to have to see.
Yes, okay. So in this example, let's say I don't want, you can see where I blurred the word. I haven't used one of these before.
Ah, sorry, give me.
Okay. All right, and then on our other page, I'll be quick. This is where you can either replace or report a word or ignore it. Huh? I lost the mouse. All right.
All right, then I'll stop you there. Thank you very much, and we'll turn it over to the judges.
Hey, I am wondering what reporting a word does.
Yeah, the demo we were just about to show you, we're sorry, it wasn't showing
No, you're
originally,
good.
but it gives out a black background on the word, and so say dumb, instead of it being red and you can actually see the word, it would completely black out the word.
Okay, and one other question. Students have the ability to block words, correct? With this?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what the pop-up extension
sorry.
would be able to do.
Okay, so what if a student doesn't want to do a math worksheet and just like blocks out the word math or something like that? I was a K-12 teacher, so I'm just wondering about that side of things.
I mean, since we are just editing like the in-page CSS, if they just want to like refresh the page, like it would bring the word back. But also, I think like for the extension, ideally it'd also be used by like facilitators for like showing, like let's say they want to show some article in a class, like but they want to blur out some specific section or like words, then they're able to like still do that.
Okay, thank you.
Um, Hello. I suppose I'd be curious if there's any research or any considerations with regard to simply blocking out the word as an effective tool for mitigation. I know, for me, when I look at it, I'm basically filling in the blank in my head of what the word should be or what I expect to be there. So I'm curious if, not seeing the word, if there is, maybe any studied impact.
Yeah, we had done research onto, even from our own experience with taking in school websites, which just completely block an entire website. You have zero access to YouTube, and there are so many educational resources on YouTube. You have zero access to, say, certain websites that aren't necessarily academic articles. And so while you could, for say, fill in the blank with whatever word is in your mind, you still would have access to so much information on these sites that we believe it would be overall beneficial to students to be able to have access to this information.
So essentially used as a mitigator.
Absolutely.
If we want to be able to see the website, but just not this content.
Absolutely. And
thank you.
Would teachers have to develop like a word list themselves, or so from the ground up, or would there be like examples?
Yeah, so we would be able to hard code into this exact implementation. As you saw in the pop-up, the user can input their own individual trigger words that the school system may not know. And for this system, it would be given to faculty and administration to hard code in those words and their alternatives.
But with furthering our project, we could get it to a point where once the school or the district has a specific list of words they don't want their students to be exposed to, we could take that as a text file and then just run that through so the teachers don't actually have to interact with it. This is just like the current implementation since we're not fully fleshed out.
Do you have a plan for removing biases from, like, for example, the administration that is working with this?
At this current point in time, we did not examine that part, mostly because like for schools, like they usually have their own way of doing things and their own like guidelines depending on where the school is. So we just wanted to provide a tool for that, but that is something that we should take into consideration.
Yes. Presenting this as kind of its own private, application, we would have to, of course, fall into line with certain school district board regulations.
Would your product work alongside current filtering systems, or would it aim to replace those systems entirely?
Well, for, say, like YouTube or, say, an article that the school has flagged because it can have harmful websites, we would aim to replace the complete blocking of that website and instead allow for this filter to give students information that they may seek while blocking out the information that the school district will not allow.
Thank you.
Hello. Is there a cost associated with using this? If we were going to implement it in schools, would the schools be paying for it?
At this current point in time, no, there would be no cost. It would be a free open source tool.
Thank you.
This does seem to take a tiny bit of tech knowledge on the part of the person that's like hard coding it into a JSON file. I realize it's silly, but a little bit. How do you intend on resolving like IT difficulties?
I think that once we actually like fully package our product, ideally we would just take a text file or a PDF from like the district and then have it just like, we wouldn't actually expect our facilitators to like go in the code. Like we would create a pipeline for that. That would be pretty like seamless.
And just adding on to that, as well as school's IT department, kind of like how you get a demo to run through Excel or to run through Word. We're going to do a quick demo, show you how to do this, and then that will be implemented. The teachers won't actually have to hard code.
All right, thank you, Team Ethics and Tech Bits. Next up, Arif Rahman, and then after Arif, we'll have the Duquesne Data Science Girls.
I don't need to connect it.
Oh, you don't need to
I just need it over here. Yeah.
Okay. Presentation. Go ahead and find it. Yeah, go ahead and find it. Let's get a free camera real quick. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
I should put it in there. Yeah, I got it.
Let's go ahead and look full screen.
Hey,
Right.
that's not it.
That's not it?
Nope. Here. Yeah.
You go ahead, full screen right there for me.
All right.
You should be good.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, we have Arif Rahman presenting on the tech track.
Hi, I'm Arif, undergrad from Duquesne. I'm currently pursuing a computer science degree. And I bring to you GuardianNet, an app that is a social media moderation tool that detects, tracks, and reports hate speech and disinformation while ensuring platform accountability. Now, we've seen it all. Hate speech flooding social media, false information spreading faster than facts. You report it, but nothing happens because social media does not take accountability. They have all the policy and the rules, but they just don't act on it. Now, they're also slow because there are billions of users on the internet nowadays. So the reality check is across 30% of the global population come across online hate speech. And about half of the adults in America have faced some sort of online harassment, especially the LGBTQ community, the racial minorities, and women. Now, why do we need GuardianNet to change that? Well, GuardianNet is a smarter, more effective way to combat online hate and misinformation. Instead of just flagging content, it ensures platform takes action while preventing unfair moderation mistakes. Now, the problem with social media is they have millions of posts, or billions actually. So it makes moderation overwhelming. And with their AI, it struggles to understand sarcasm, coded language, and evolving hate speech. Now, the key features of GuardianNet is it has both AI and human control. So the AI scans and flags potential hate speech or misinformation. Then the AI makes the user review it and confirm it to make sure that it's truly harmful. And if it's confirmed, a warning is sent to the offender, and offenders receive messages explaining why their content violates policies, encouraging behavior correction. Now, there is a 3-strike policy in here as well. So after 3 violations, the offender is red listed, and reports are sent to social media. And in the app, the users can track platform responses, holding them accountable. Now, GuardianNet is like the bridge that connects AI detection and human judgment, making moderation more fair, accurate, and effective. Now, why is GuardianNet different? It not only holds platforms accountable, it is also scalable and privacy compliant. Even if you complain about the user, it's at the end of the day, it's the social media that's taking the action. This isn't just about removing harmful content, it's about making social media safer and more responsible.
We'll stop there and turn it over to the judges.
Hello. Just to be clear on what it is this a third-party app I'm logging into and maybe I'm syncing my social media accounts to it so it can review my content, or how is it interfacing with the social media?
Yeah, the first part, it's a third-party app that you use your social media credentials to log into.
Thank you.
So if the app sends a report to the social media company and they don't do anything, then what?
We will be integrating a lot of stuff, and there is an option in our app where we have the tracking system and reports. So if you go to click reports, it gives you the list and the details of which reports were a success, which report were rejected, and which were pending. Now, it has all the details about it. So at the end of the day, the social media platforms are held accountable, which could potentially give them a negative image throughout the population, like whoever is using the account. So yeah, so that would make them more more responsible towards enforcing their policies.
So just to clarify, your app is going to share with everybody whether the platform responded to the content?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I know that you mentioned like PR image for people, for like the companies not actually using it, but it also will probably cost the companies money in order to look at it. How do you, like, who's going to pay for this?
We were thinking if the company, since their moderation, it's hard to moderate so much stuff, we were thinking of partnerships with companies so that we could do the job for them.
Companies are usually pretty resistant to outside forces, outside groups coming and trying to like mess with their business. How do you intend to sell them on this aside from PR? Since, like, for example, there is a hate speech problem on X and Elon Musk doesn't care.
So if we talk about Meta, there is a lot of hate speech and disinformation going on recently, and we could see other social medias popping up, other platforms. So there is a shift of users that's going from social medias in Meta to other stuff. So to the other options. Now, the company eventually would lose money over this because recently Meta has lost a lot of users. Like Facebook is dead because it's an old people thing now, and Instagram has a lot of young users, and when like they're like, I don't know about US, but there in other countries there all has been protests against these companies because their children are going astray and they're using languages that they don't support at their homes. So I believe if the companies don't act fast, eventually they're going to lose a lot of users.
How do you intend to keep bias out of the system?
Now, this system integrates an AI that collects the data from LLM, and then we'll move up to LLM in the future. But the good part about this is it also has human moderation. So even if the AI is biased and negatively flags some content, the human will look into it before it gets reported.
Hello. I think, let's say perhaps social media companies are already happy with the way that they're handling reporting, even though users might not be, at times they feel maybe unheard, but for the company themselves, based on their bottom line, the level of activity they have, everything else, they're like, our reporting system is working fine. What data or research exists to help these companies maybe understand that users aren't unhappy with unheard reports or with the way that they're using reports right now?
While I was covering this project, I have come across a lot of articles, some which I've cited about online hate speech and about companies not taking action. There has been a problem in Australia as well where everyone has been complaining about this, and they have actually left the platforms for other platforms. And even myself, I have come across this issue. I don't use those platforms anymore. And I believe if they're held accountable, and eventually there's gonna be a public scar, which is why they would eventually give in and do what we want them to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arif.
All right, thank you.
Up next, we have the Duquesne Data Science Girls, and following them will be the Code Breakers.
The formatting got messed up. Okay. Drag. Nope. Sorry. Go.
All right, Duquesne Data Science Girls presenting on the tech track.
Our solution for the hackathon was to integrate an Instagram sentiment dashboard that will see the content that you consume as a way to mitigate your online hate consumption. So essentially what our dashboard is doing, it is scraping your Instagram data, and what it is going to do is going to classify your comments and what you're seeing through the algorithm, and classify your speech into necessarily categorical kinds of hate speech. Maybe it's more racial or political. And then we will analyze that and present solutions and recommendations so that you can contribute to Instagram in a more positive manner.
The first step in this process will involve users inputting their Instagram account username.
This is all done through the Python package instaloader.
Then it's going to show an overview of the profile. It'll have like their name and then posts that they have, and then the metrics involved with each of the posts.
And then this has all of the comments associated with your account, whether they be left by people commenting on your posts or the comments that you leave. And what it will do is sentiment analysis using Hugging Face, and generally just put it in positive or negative, where negative is corresponding to online hate. This isn't necessarily categorized yet, but that is the intention. And then it just kind of shows if you are more distributed towards positive versus negative in your sentiment.
And then over time, it'll show whether or not the comments were positive or negative, and the goal is to have more positive comments closer to today's date.
And then at the end of the dashboard, we will have AI-generated solutions. So we used Falcon to create recommendations to improve your Instagram usage. And with these, you are intended to implement them into your usage to kind of up those positive sentiment scores.
And then here, an overview of it would just be to detect the hate speech that users have, identify the kind of content they're consuming, whether or not it be rage-bait content or disinformation, and then overall provide insights onto their online behavior.
So using instaloader, we did come across an issue of rate limiting. So in the future, if we weren't under a time constraint, we would have actually used meta developer access on the Instagram Graph API. So that our IP wouldn't have issues when we were implementing this in testing. This could have provided more accurate sentiment analysis as well, with more data to kind of look at. And then eventually the idea is to have this as like a tab on Instagram on mobile or on the website itself, so that it isn't a third-party software, but that is where it is currently.
So as a creator of this positive platform, we must also uphold ethical behaviors. This includes respecting user rights and giving full transparency to the process. So a primary goal of ours is to encourage users to want to increase their positivity online. So to improve their behaviors on social media, we want to enhance user engagement. So we would add factors that include personalizing the dashboard and the sidebar, adding notifications and alerts, and even rewards and incentives like badges that are given to you when you reach a certain goal.
Thank you, ladies. We'll turn it over to the judges.
Cool. So there have been other sentiment analysis tools in the past that have had issues with other languages and trying to determine sentiments, or other cultures, like certain words in UK English are fine, whereas like the words in US English would possibly be hate speech. How do you intend to kind of reconcile this?
So what comes to mind for that is behind, I think, any technical solution, you do want to have a human team, as obviously people are bringing up. So I think, you know, in your Instagram settings, you can choose like your preferred language, and then you can have separate models maybe per language. In our case, we were just using like NLTK or Hugging Face. So it wasn't super complex, but that is definitely something that can be combated, I think, pretty easily, as long as you have experts in the fields that are per language. And if this were to be integrated like actually by Meta, they absolutely have the resources to conduct that.
How will you incentivize users to basically hand over their data to yet another company in order for them to receive this kind of feedback?
So as I said, the goal is for this to kind of be implemented in Instagram itself, but if you are, you're trusting another third-party software, of course, is, scary. Logging in with your Instagram account, you don't necessarily trust it. But I think the goal here is if you see your personalized kind of contribution to hate speech and you're like, oh, I didn't think I contributed to this as much as I have over time, and you can filter through your trends, you have more of like an incentive towards yourself maybe to be a better person and maybe better your community as well. But if it were just a meta kind of feature within Instagram, that necessarily wouldn't be the issue. You wouldn't have to log in through OAuth or whatever you would utilize from a third-party software.
Hello, you touched on this a little bit in the answer you just gave, but I'm curious, with a tool like this, it sort of requires people to be interested in self-reflection and examining their own contributions. I would say maybe there's a crossover of people that are engaging in a lot of hate speech and also don't really care to know how much hate speech they're engaging in. Outside of targeting people that are interested in understanding the metrics that they contribute to, what are ways you would consider reaching out to folks that might not be interested in that kind of self-reflection to get them to engage in this product?
So we have on here, if you see like the rewards and incentives section with like badges and the like, if this were, like I said, something to be integrated into the social media itself, then you could have notifications saying, hey, your analytics show that you have this negative trend. And maybe, unfortunately, if you are contributing to hate speech online in such a significant proportion, I believe that you should be limited in some sense. So, free speech and all, but if you are unfortunately contributing to discrimination and hate, I think that there should be like limits towards your account, and that way if you like look at your trends and if you look and take into the recommendations, then you can implement them better and you are able to just make sure that you are using your social media responsibly.
Thank you.
A little bit in the same vein, there have been precedent in the past where users have delighted in being flagged. For example, when Meta first started putting, God, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was basically like this person might be a terrorist under certain posts. People were screenshotting it and sharing it and very excited about it. How do you plan to avoid this with your product?
So what I was thinking is if you are someone whose reports are extracted and you have more negative sentiment consistently and maybe contributing to more of like certain categories, maybe you're contributing more to like racism, you could be shadow banned, I think, in some circumstances, and that way you're not having your post in the algorithm as much, and that way if no one sees it, then like what's the harm, right?
Cool, thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Duquesne Data Science girls. Next up, we have the Code Breakers, followed by our final team, Facilo.
I'm missing you guys.
Scroll down, maybe. I saw us up here earlier.
Oh, and the Code Breakers. You guys go. Okay.
All right, we have the Code Breakers presenting on the tech track.
Hello there, we are the Code Breakers. This is Remy, Devin, and I'm Will, and today we'll be presenting to you our project, The Inquisitor. Now, what's the problem? Well, with every day, technology is advancing, and as that technology advances, what we can see is people's ability to create fake content continues to get better, most notably in the meme community and those who would be bad actors. And they spread both myths and disinformation alike. The problem arises when those bad actors can create really good and harmful deepfakes that can incite hate, fear, or even violence, as we can see by these two infamous deepfakes here.
So our solution is a Chrome web extension. The whole purpose is just to detect deepfake content that might appear on your screen. We just want to provide them with the user to determine the scale into which it takes out the content. So it's a little scroll bar once you take out the web extension. And we still want the user to experience AI memes, like I enjoy AI memes. So we just want to make sure there's a filter where the user gets to determine that themselves. So here's just a high-level view. Basically, we have a model that's trained on a bunch of data sets of AI-generated images and regular images. And then we just do a score of how the images that pop up on your screen go against that. And that scroll bar that you get, that basically changes the score into which it gets compared against.
Here's a basic prototype of our front end and back end. We have our model presented in this notebook, and you can see our Google extension where you can modify how you want the machine to cater to your needs. Here we're just running 2 basic images, one we saw before, and it correctly classifies the MessaNet architecture. Some pros and cons: this will lead to safer searches online, and it will prevent hate speech from being used. There are many people that are confused with this technology and don't know what's real and what's fake, such as older individuals. Some cons is that AI is getting much better, so we will have to train our solution as we're fighting this war, and it'll be more and more hard to tell what's entertainment and what's hate.
Some of our next steps would include expanding the model to work on videos, pushing it to all systems via an API, as well as expanding this model to have an SEO function that we could sell to people like Google so that we could circumvent hateful searches. So for example, if you were searching something that is very explicitly hateful, it would instead send you to some more neutral fact-based articles just in case of ignorance. And that's really further down the line right now. So that has been the Inquisitor. Thank you. And are there any questions?
I'm sorry, could you just go over the sliders, or explain the sliders thing again?
Yeah.
Yeah, so with our extension, we included sliders so that you can really select what's being marked as a deepfake and what you're still allowed to see in your browser. So for instance, you can click the meme button, and memes that are flagged as memes by the AI will not be detected.
So in other words, the filters and the sliders really say to what level and to what degree we're filtering out certain images. So in the ideal world, when this is finished, it'll have like a little number, red, yellow, green, for it's fine, it might be a deep fake, or it is a deep fake, and those sliders would help fine-tune the model to say, okay, are we really searching this out? And if you slide it all the way to the right, it's just completely gone, even if it has a remote chance of being a deep fake.
Cool, thank you.
So just to clarify, you said there are 3 levels. Is it real, suspicious, and definitely a deepfake? Or
I'll go back for you here.
Oh, thank you.
It's gonna play. Yeah, so we have hate, satire, and fake. So satire kind of along the line. We were thinking of if you were doing this for news sources, say you would have Fox News, CNN, BBC. Satire is for things like The Onion or the Babylon Bee. So we wouldn't get rid of people who are intentionally doing this as a living to make a joke.
But at its base, this is a deepfake detection software?
Yes.
What strategies are you using to detect AI-generated deepfakes?
We're using TensorFlow with Python, so we have a trained model. It took us a while to get really good data to work it on, but eventually when we did find really good data, we had to use what's called leave one out cross-validation to make sure that it really worked. So we were just looking at all of the training versus all of the testing and making sure it hit every single one and that it would flag it with a really high percentage of accuracy.
All right, great, thank you.
Hello. I know you mentioned as a potential weak spot, perhaps, that it might not be able to detect nuance in what is satirical, what's done in jest versus explicitly hate. I'm curious if you can speak a little bit about what kind of mitigation you imagine eventually being able to do in this space, because it feels super nuanced, right?
Yeah, so that's definitely something that we would have to research ourselves and make our own definition and probably work with some policymakers and some government agencies as well as the people who make the websites to try and figure out. So we'd have to conduct further research to get a really good one. But right now, it's pretty much just what is most definitely wrong.
Thank you.
Did you find an online training set yourself, or was it like, yeah, like where'd you get your training set?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we first started off with just free images of politicians and then memes that we found to train as fake ones. And then we just looked for more hateful AI-generated images of politicians. And to further refine it, we went to this website, Kaggle, to find just classes of real and fake images to continue to train our bot on until it was working properly.
Cool. So you said this would be a browser extension, right?
Yes.
Okay. How would you convince people to like use it?
So the best way to convince them to use it is to say, hey, do you not want to see deepfakes? Because there are plenty of people who just want to go on the internet and see real content. So it'd be more for the people who are just kind of sick of seeing all their AI videos in their feed and going, all right, I just want to watch real people. So we'd probably have to do a good bit of advertising. And that's one of the reasons why we actually left the memes in there, because we figured, well, if we're trying to sell this, we need to have a way that some deepfakes get through because people do enjoy that content. So that's kind of what we would do, try and do like a small marketing campaign towards the people who don't really like fake content.
Will this be free to use for users, or we try and sell it to companies and organizations?
Well, right now I'd have it be free to users, but I mean, if Google wants to give me $1 million, I'm not saying no.
Fair enough.
I think similar to Andy's question, folks that might be most susceptible to deepfakes or AI images might not even really necessarily understand that they are. They might not know what they're looking at, what they're looking for, that they're even seeing AI. So is there a level of education that you think needs to come with promoting this, letting folks know what kinds of things they might be seeing already? Or do you think it's more targeted at people that already know what they do and don't think they're looking at?
When we were first formulating this idea, I thought of my grandmother sending me images, and she herself did not know if they were real or fake. So we were hoping that this solution could tackle that problem too. So for both, I would guess you just have to be aware that deepfakes are a thing.
So yeah, there would probably be some level of education needed.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Code breakers. Last but not least, we have Facillo.
Going to the next slide, how do we do that?
So yeah, there's two ways to do it. You do it here on the keyboard, or you do this big button. Play button right there. Okay, got two options, so they both work.
All right, thank you.
Just make sure you speak into the microphone.
All right, thank you.
Okay, final team, Facillo, presenting on the policy track.
Yes, so we are writing a policy to the FTC, and one thing that inspired us was that we noticed with a lot of methods when it comes to getting rid of online hate on like social media or online in general, just focus strictly on censorship or bans outright, and we wanted to go a step further and kind of answer that like what's next moment, like what are we doing with bans when people can just come back and reoffend. So we took the model from kind of criminal restorative justice and educational restorative justice, and just to give two examples of the effectiveness of it. In New Zealand, they adopted a restorative justice model for youth offenders, and it was seen that the Ministry of Justice report showed that there was a 20% reducing of reoffending rates for those who participated. And in education, restorative models show that when students engage in dialogue circles instead of facing immediate suspension, there's a 40% reduction in suspensions within the first 2 years and 50% decline in absenteeism. So let's just begin with our policy. So this policy complements the COPA, which is already an FTC act, and this one protects children's online policy and privacy in children under 13. But however, it doesn't address online hate and extremist behavior. and we think that it's a good complement because it already exists and the FTC already has it. So it targets gaming platforms like Roblox, Fortnite, and Xbox, where young users often encounter hate speech and violent behavior. The policy aims to use restorative justice practices. So we want to address hate and extremist behavior in youth, and like I said, instead of banning players, the policy requires players to engage in educational models about empathy, race, and violence, supported by parental involvement. And they would have to do this before they are allowed back on the app. So why are we stopping at censorship and bans? So our policy specifically, parents and players under 15 are automatically notified when their child engages in harmful behavior on voice chats or regular chat logs. And then there's tailored learning modules. So players must complete educational modules addressing key issues like race, gender sensitivity, and nonviolence before returning to the platform. And this will be specific on the type of hate speech that they performed. So the parent involvement, we think that this is important because parents are able to confirm the understanding by taking a short quiz with the child to support the children's learning process. And we think that that familial aspect is very important. And then players face temporary or indefinite bans until they complete these educational requirements. So this would be directed towards young gamers, particularly those under 15 and their families.
Thank you. We'll turn it back to the judges.
I have two questions. My first question is, was that a random screenshot or was one of you banned from Apex Legends?
Oh, yeah, that was just an example, but yeah, this is like the current model that that we want to kind of go against. Just bans that kind of says, oh yeah, you're banned, but like you can do it again in 3 days or 1 week or whenever you're allowed back on the app. So we wanted to have that kind of model where you have to actually learn from your mistakes, which, but from the criminal and educational examples, we know that this works.
Yeah, it makes me think of, I think a few years ago, there was a case when some folks were getting banned from Fallout 76 and Bethesda asked them to write an apology essay as a way to get back. I think there was an outcry about that, a bit of like folks were a little bit like indignant. I can't believe they would ask us to do this. I wonder, have you considered public perception? Maybe because this is more geared towards children, it's a little different, but I'm curious, have you thought like, will people in general think this is a good idea? Or will the public be kind of like memeing on it the way they were with the Fallout essays?
Well, we definitely think that public perception would approve for this. And we believe this because we have seen, we actually have examples of violence in chats where it has escalated to like extreme level. For example, there was a case where the Buffalo, New York, he killed 10 black shoppers and injured 3 others. And he actually stated that, I'm just saying, I probably wouldn't be a nationalistic if it weren't for blood and iron on Roblox. And this is an excerpt from an archive of NBC. So like these were, he said that in his Discord logs. So this is just one example, but we see that there are consistent white supremacist ideologies that are seen in these chat logs with people talking to each other, and we see different hate specifically towards people, minorities, people of color, people of the LGBTQ community, Jewish people, and it's increasing every single year. So one of the key sources that we have in our memo was from the Anti-Defamation League, which is one of the most forefront of our anti-hate. And so young people especially experience more harassment this year, and it's up from 67% from last year. So harassment of 10 to 17-year-olds based on identity increased to 37% from 29% in 2022.
Thank you.
So the program seems to rely on age verification and parent buy-in. I know a lot of these games don't actually have age verification. How would you like actually get this going?
Well, we see that it works because Roblox actually has, until you turn to the age of 13, your parents have ownership over your app, and they can decide kind of like what games you play, like, etc. So we see this working model. It already works, and the FTC as well. They the complementary act that it is complementary to is for people under the age of 13. So there's specific. We increased it to 15, but there are specific acts and policies that are already out there that show that age verification it's able to be worked, like in reality it's able to work, and then we're gonna just apply this to our own policy.
Cool. Sorry, one last follow-up. So, but like how having parents go in and like sign something or what, like check that, how are you gonna get parents to pay attention to actually like getting their kids to check? How are you gonna prevent the kids from being the ones to check that box?
So this goes into a more deeper topic of where does the revenue of the company come from when it comes to kids. And so we had this idea, so I cold email a bunch of C-suite executives on Roblox, Epic Games, and we had a quick Zoom meeting tag with the chief financial officer of Epic Games, and he told us that most of the money that comes in, well, not most of the money, 30% comes from people that are underage, parents putting their credit card in. And so we're able to use that as a filter to know, okay, what age range are they, even though if they didn't put that when they created the account. Plus, so for example, let's say they get banned on Fortnite for a month, right? It's not in the best benefit of Fortnite to ban them for a month, because then they're not gonna spend as much money in and it's gonna decrease their revenue. So he told us that, and that they were searching for different things to do, and if they complete like an educational module that it will be made to them, they will be able to play, you know, again right away, and they will have that security that whatever they bought before, whatever money they spend on the game before is gonna be there after.
Exactly.
And they're not gonna, you know, repeat their actions again. Plus, it's gonna keep the engagement on, because we have to view this as the company has to benefit, you know, as well as provide security to the users.
Exactly. This is a $203 billion market, and 20% of people stopped, according to ADL, 20% of people stopped participating in these games because of the hate. So they have these incentives, and the users also have the incentives, because now they can control the timeline of when I can participate in these games again. I can do it in 2 weeks, I can do it never, and then it's up to them.
Cool, thank you.
All right, I do have to stop. I'm sorry. We got to hit the 5-minute time limit. Thank you, Facilo. Thank you to all the presenters and the judges for a wonderful time and discussion. We invite everybody now to the front room for ice cream, snacks, discussion, networking, and then at 3:45 we will return to this room, Room C, for a short talk and discussion, followed by the awards at 4:30. You must be present at 4:30 to get your award. If you are joining us online, please return to this live stream for the awards, or for the discussion at 3:45 and then the awards at 4:30 on this live stream. All right, we'll see everybody then. Thanks.
Yeah, I had to add an extra chair, so you might have to shift them to get around. I don't know. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming today. I just want to take the time to recognize all the students, all the hard work that you all put in. It was great. I look forward to this every year. So thank you all for contributing. Thank you to our judges here. Yeah, give them a round of applause. Let's give everyone a round of applause. And also, we have a lot of members who help set up this event. So thank you to everybody who makes this happen year in and year out. First, we're just going to start with a conversation with our judges. This is a time for you guys to sit back and relax and just learn a little bit more about online hate and how their job experiences have related to this. So if you want to start.
Hey, I'm Annie Latsko. I am a senior software engineer at Microsoft. We've got like a tiny little office across the 16th Street Bridge. I do primarily cloud infrastructure for a file systems product that is psychotically called Azure Container Storage Enabled by Azure Arc. So write that down. I'm sure you'll use this distributed file system. But yeah, no. So I guess the way I've always used computers a lot, as I'm sure many such cases here. But I think that the way I've really interacted with online hate is, one, being on the opposite, like watching it happen to my friends, and then two, watching it happen to me. Because it's very easy to post a comment and then have someone DM you to kill yourself. Very, very common. And in the beginning, my approach was truly just don't post, don't log off, no big deal, make a new account. And that was really, really frustrating because you had to go find all your friends again. It was a whole thing. So what I really try to do is just scroll past it, don't look at it, don't give them the engagement. That's usually my creed. But it's hard because other people are clicking on it. A perfect answer does not really exist right now. The closest that we're able to get are the ideas that all of you guys were sharing, which is amazing. I'm rambling here. Here, bail me out. Why don't you go ahead?
Hi, everybody. My name is Sadie. I'm the Digital Services Director in the Office of the Governor. I've come to you from Harrisburg today. In my role, we work a lot with the agencies on their digital content, working obviously on the governor's digital content as well. And we engage in a lot of the digital policy that's happening in the governor's office and the Office of Administration. So thinking about AI policy, thinking about digital use in general, those kinds of things are discussions that we're having generally. When I think about online hate, I think, in my experience at least, it's obviously something that comes from a place of people, especially when it surrounds politics. I think it's so intrinsic for people. I mean, politics surrounds every day of your life. It's something that it's almost hard not to have a strong opinion about. People who do have opinions about it and who think about it, it's usually a strong opinion. So something that I've learned in my career has been to read content twice, once as a human and let the human emotions or whatever you feel impact you, and then again as an employee, as a government worker, as somebody who's just got to try to understand others and continue doing work unbiasedly. So I think that's my my nugget.
Those are two hard acts to follow. So I'm Chad Heisenreiter. Some of you may remember if you watched anything online. I was here last year as well. I am from the RAND Corporation. For those of you who aren't familiar with RAND, it's you can think of it as kind of government consultancy, if you will. We're an FFRDC or a collection of FFRDCs whose job it is to support the government in various ways through various levels of expertise. My primary expertise is actually in cybersecurity broadly. I do a lot of of work in thinking about things like what are we buying, how are we securing it, how would we have to use it if the worst kind of happens, right? Which is not always the most fun thing to think about, but obviously necessary. Prior to that, I spent 20 years with the Air Force as a civilian, where I was doing more capability development. So actually, I love to tell the story that early on in my career, I was doing research on forgery detection long before we had deep fakes and things like that. We actually thought that maybe it would only be, you know, really bad guys that would bother to actually forge an image, because who would do that? And I remember I used to have to hire high school students and give them, you know, 3-megapixel digital cameras to run around, because we literally could not scrape enough images off the internet to go do the research we needed to do. So that's probably really dating myself. Anyway, so in terms of my engagement with online hate, obviously, you know, through that career, I've had a lot of engagement with things like propaganda, with things like, you know, forgeries and the media environment, and watching it grow over time. I was reminded by one of my colleagues up here that last year I talked about my children. I guess I can't probably reuse that answer, but certainly, you know, I have kids that range from 12 to 24, and I've had to shepherd them through this media environment. But I would say that, you know, my biggest challenge lately has been in how I engage with people in terms of a fact-checking, if you will, right? As somebody who works in the jobs that I do, I get exposed to a lot. I often want to jump in when I see things that are wrong and try to correct it. I've very quickly learned over time that's not always the right answer. Sometimes people don't want to hear it. Sometimes, you know, I'm the one jumping the gun. And so I really like all of what was said before in terms of this idea of reading it once and then reading it again with a different mindset. And I really like the idea of sometimes, you know, you just have to scroll past it and let it go, because you can do more harm than good sometimes by engaging.
Yeah, thank you. Those are definitely good ideas, and I think it's always good to have a pause in certain situations. There are a lot of threats facing online communities today. What are some of the threats that people do not know about or might fly under the radar?
When you say threats, I'm sorry. When you say threats facing online communities today, do you mean like people who are effectively posting together and then they are being threatened by?
I mean, it could be any of those things, but I mean, certainly that's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, anything that relates obviously to some of these hateful ideals that come out of it, anything that's even threatening or harmful that are online. Is there anything that you guys see that maybe a lot of people aren't aware of, you know, that or just don't notice, you know what I mean, that you guys notice in your lines of work?
So I think, you know, when putting on my hat and what I do, my mind kind of immediately goes to threats with the big T. And I think one thing that I've realized a lot of the people who don't engage in the circles I engage in don't realize is that, you know, there are people who actively, you know, kind of promote these sorts of things, not because they believe in it, but because it benefits them, right? Whether it's driving the revenue streams, whether it's driving the discontent that they want to see in our society, whether it's just, you know, somebody out for a fun day, which is perhaps maybe what people are more familiar with. But those first two are purposeful, right? And you know, going back to my whole thing about sometimes, you know, not engaging, or sometimes you have to let it go. It is that engagement, of course, that feeds the algorithm and drives the engagement and ends up, you know, perpetuating the cycle. And I think it's worth stepping back and realizing that sometimes the hate you see online is something that somebody is purposely doing to try to drive wedges and move the needle for their own purposes. And I think that's important to recognize.
Yeah, kind of to build off of that, a lot of that a lot of that, like the online hate that is there is in a lot of smaller walled garden situations, like Discord especially, that kids don't even really quite realize is what's going on. I do Big Brother, Big Sister. I've had now 2 kids really deep into scamming younger children on Roblox. And it's one of those, yeah, they'll have like multiple items that have like a 0.01% drop rate. And I'm like, all right, well, where'd you get like 9 of these? So it's really hard. They don't want, so kids, especially in their own smaller communities, do not want to hear an adult coming in being like, hey, stop scamming this child. or hey, you shouldn't be doing this, or hey, this insane conspiracy theory you like heard online that all of your friends believe, that everyone is whispering about, even your enemies believe it, that's not real. Really, really, really difficult to convince people that this is like a problem. And the main way that I have found that you're able to like kind of get through and fight this misinformation and fight these like really quite unkind acts is to make them as cringe as possible so that the kids do not want to do them and they do not want their peers to see them doing it. I have pulled it off successfully with one of my big brother, big sister kids with scamming children on Roblox, which is, hey, go play a different game. Like, go play one where you're not interacting with kids. You are 15, you should not be interacting with 8-year-olds. Like, that's kind of lame. And that eventually kind of made its way up through her friend group, which, again, to mixed success. This one actually went pretty well, but because they all managed to swap to smaller games. But the important thing is getting people in these smaller communities to actually change their minds. And it's not going to be like you said, just someone coming in and be like, that's actually false. It's going to be just making them pause, like you said, and being like, are you kidding me? Do you really believe that? And then try to get, if you can get 1 or 2 people to not believe it or to like actually like look into it, you can harness the peer pressure and group think that is in a lot of smaller communities to actually push out those ideas. But it takes someone making it cringe. You've got to make it cringe.
I think it's a little bit of a cop-out, but when I think about maybe unseen spaces where hate is occurring, I think, you know, so often, in general, it's so dispersed across the landscape that like you might not realize that it's so radicalized in some spaces or so deeply ingrained in folks, but because it just seems like one hate comment here or there. But I think in general it's easy to think that these things are just like one-offs, but really that like, you know, larger radicalized space is happening sort of insidiously, like behind the scenes. People don't realize.
Thank you. Over the course of your career, what have been some effective projects and actions that you've been a part of or witnessed, and what made them effective?
So my team, I work for Microsoft, and we actually have a metric on these like employee satisfaction surveys that we have to fill out twice a year that they actually take fairly seriously, that we are supposed to be using AI. And it asks us, hey, are you using AI? How often do you incorporate AI into like your daily life? And we end up using it a lot as a result. GitHub Copilot, I'm not trying to sell anybody on any particular project, but it is nice if you have something built into your code editor to just like autocomplete. So basically, we have a lot of interaction with the AI that Microsoft in particular is putting together. And one thing that our smaller office has been pretty successful in with regards to combating at least misinformation is we created an actual like report system where we collect everything together, any misinformation, or specifically it identifying docs or hallucinating APIs, like API endpoints that like don't exist. We're able to collect those, send it to the relevant team, and get them to actually improve and kind of prioritize sources that are actually like correct, at least within the company. And I think that if other companies, like with the ChatGPT, so with like OpenAI, with Google's stuff, I think that if they were able and willing to implement that internally, I think that would at least help a little bit because it's really worked on our end.
It's an interesting question. It's a bit challenging, I think, in my space because, you know, as a government entity, we have an obligation to be public facing and to allow folks to communicate with us. So we don't really get to police the kind of communications that people have with us, you know, to some, with some level of some level of truth to some things that folks say that are maybe threatening or things like that. Aside, other than that, I mean, folks are allowed to say whatever they'd like to say, by and large. So I think one thing that I think of that we've done is we've done our best to make things on the digital space more accessible in general, to reduce the level of frustration people have when they interact with the government. So in some spaces, we've done some modernization of different forms, different programs. By and large, it's an ongoing effort, but we've tried to make things more transparent and more accessible in a way that at least reduces the level of anger and frustration people might have when they're interacting with the government, to help sometimes calm those tempers when we have conversations with folks.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna cop out a little bit on this one too, but and largely say that, you know, in the policy space, being able to inform particularly, you know, decision makers, you know, high level folks in the DoD and beyond, you know, who might not be technologists on technology policy is, you know, what I've spent the last 3 years doing, whether it ranges from AI to cybersecurity and other things, but maybe perhaps more pertinent to this, although not quite. On the technology space, and this is what's exciting about what you all were doing, right? I've been able to be parts of numerous technology deployments that went out to people, you know, warfighters in the field or people on the ground doing kind of real work, as it were, to include things like being able to source imagery back to the camera and allow that to be used in a way that supported kind of intelligence operations, or like being able to catch child predators and things like that. You know, not quite hate speech per se, but certainly online harm, no doubt. But I guess, you know, the message of all of this being that, you know, you really can make a difference with some of the things that you're building. It's a matter of finding the right audience. It's a matter of getting it in the right hands. And there's, you know, certainly through my career, 2 different ways I've done that. You know, directly by giving somebody a piece of technology that they haven't had before, indirectly by helping to explain them all of the things it's going to take to make that work. And I think those 2 parts are kind of equally important. And that's one of the things that I really like about this event.
Ooh, can I ask you a question? So, like, is a lot of you guys had projects that you're gonna need buy-in from users, parents, like the social media companies. What are some of the like barriers you've hit trying to get someone to adopt any kind of technology?
How much time do we have? Right. Yeah, I mean the barriers are myriad and unique. To be honest, it's often very contextual. It's often very much relative to the situation. I will say over time, you know, a lot of it comes down to momentum and change, right? People kind of get set in their ways about how things are done or how to do things. It's hard to change processes a lot more than it is to change technology. That's actually part of what brought me to RAND, you know, from going to building stuff on a day-to-day basis to thinking about why we build stuff, or helping to change people's perceptions of what those things are that we need. You know, that's an equally hard problem in a lot of ways. Not to say technology isn't hard, and not to say I didn't bang my head against a computer multiple times over many days trying to get a piece of code to work. But at the end of the day, you know, it's both those sides working in tandem that's really essential.
What advice do you all have to the students who might want to get in this space, you know, for career or even research in the future?
I mean, I'll go. I did my undergrad in media studies and I did my grad degree in public administration. So I've just always been super interested in the cross section of technology and civic life. And I think just it being something that I'm really passionate about and following that passion has been really beneficial to me. I mean, it's such a basic idea, but I've also, I love video games. I also spent a year working at a video game company. So it's just one of those things where, like, if you find that you're really passionate about it, I would say not to be afraid to pursue it, especially because the media landscape is always changing. Digital spaces are always evolving and growing, and we need folks who have come in all different spaces and levels throughout the timeline of like how quickly things evolve to have a really good perspective on things. So yeah, I think, you know, when I think back on what I've always loved to do, I'm very lucky that I landed in this space where I get to do exactly that. And I just did it by just continuing to learn more and more about the thing that I love.
And you can just go do things. Like, it's possible to just go, like, and as you guys found out with the hackathon, or probably knew already going into it a little bit, but especially for like tech with the specifically coding, you can just go do it. If you start doing it and you build a portfolio, you build a resume, you can work your way into the space, because once you start building, you're in the space already. I work with I was able to work with a guy who had a resume. He had a couple internships. He had, like, graduated with a BS, all that stuff, and he wasn't able to get any like job off or any interviews. So I took a look at it and I'm like, all right, sure, like, let me refer you to Microsoft. And when you get referred, there's a little blurb that I have to fill out that's like, hey, why are you recommending this? So I'm talking to this guy and I'm like, okay, like, what are you doing? What are you up to? And he's like, oh yeah, well, right now I'm I'm doing a personal project where I'm making an original Game Boy stream wireless games and do wireless charging. And I'm like, why is that not on your resume? Why did you link your borderline empty GitHub instead of your insane project portfolio that you put together just for funsies? And he added a QR code to the project portfolio, swapped it off with the GitHub, and yeah, got a job about within like 2 weeks. And it's because he just went and he did things. And like the other important thing to actually getting into the space is just ask, which is a big part of doing things, but just ask. You can talk to the Pittsburgh tech community, very, very friendly. There's Hackers Guild, PGA, there's Code and Supply, a lot of different options. Go in and say, hey, can you help me with this? Or hey, would you mind reviewing this? Or hey, would you mind like recommending me for this? Like, I have, as long as you're coming in and you're coming in with specific stuff that you want to do, that you care about, you're able to work your way into the space. So at least advice-wise, just go do things. Go download the open source like LLMs. Go play with TensorFlow. Go play with, there's a ton of stuff out there. Some of you have gaming computers, like you have the power to actually go and train some of these. It might take a while, but you have the power. So yeah, I'd say go for it.
I can't foot stomp enough those two answers and how tied in they are, right? Having the passion and just going to do things. If I have anything to add, I think it's that, you know, while it's good to have a compass or a direction, flexibility is amazing, right? Because you just don't know what sorts of opportunities. I came out of my undergraduate pretty certain I was going to end up at Microsoft or Oracle or somewhere like that, because that would have been, again, dating myself, but that would have been the other places. Not with Microsoft, by the way, but just in terms of the timing, those were the things to do at that time. And then 9/11 happened. Next thing I know, I'm working for the Air Force, and frankly, there was nothing more important to me than the work that I was doing at the Air Force. And all I wanted to do was build stuff. And somewhere along the line, someone says, hey, you probably ought to go back and get some more school. And the next thing you know, I'm overseas, I'm getting a doctorate. Like, these things wouldn't have happened if I would have planned them. But at the same time, I had to recognize that they were opportunities and I could align myself to them. So I think having the passion, going and doing things, and then translating that into opportunities is, you know, kind of the winning combination.
Yeah, I think it's an important lesson. You know, learning to pivot and translate your skills is definitely valuable. Something they can take away. I'd like to open the questions up for the students, if anybody has any questions. And while they're thinking of some questions, do you guys have anything in the works that you're particularly excited about, or any projects coming up?
Yeah, I think one thing that we've just worked our way through this past year in the governor's office is moving all of our agency websites from various sporadic SharePoint and WordPress websites into one experience, which we're using Adobe Experience Manager. So it's great. All of the agencies used to have their own look. Some of them were less up to date, less accessible. Now they're all on the same platform, so it's like a uniform experience. We spent most of last year transitioning agencies over in cohorts through the months, and then at the end of December, we finally launched the last agencies. So now all of the agency websites are within one uniform space, and we're trying to prevent the sprawl from happening again. It was very exciting.
So I guess two quick hits. Unsurprisingly, you know, there's a big nexus between cybersecurity and AI that a lot of folks want to explore, and I guess I'm one of those lot of folks. But actually, the thing I'm even more excited about, I've been able to do some work lately that kind of looked at systemic reasons for insecurity. So at one point I got very interested in this nexus between economics and information security, and how much of the decision making, particularly on like a firm level, is driven, of course, more by economics than perhaps what is right or what is most technically feasible, and being able to apply that to some of the problems that the government is having, and figuring out how to best help the government help companies get to where we need them to be more secure in cyberspace.
So mine is a little bit of a personal project that kind of ties into work. I build a lot of CLIs. So I don't know how many of you guys have used Git, but there's 1 million commands. There is a website that will generate commands that are not real but look really real, and there's no way to tell because Git is insane. So what I would love to do, and we're doing this internally at work to start out with, is taking that CLI and being able to create a data set, train an LLM on the data set so you can just talk to it. You can say, hey, for example, for the internal thing, I was like, hey, I want a 3-node cluster running this version of our product coming from this image, and it has AC stores, it's backend storage. And then have it just give the user the command, because I remember all the flags, but nobody else does. I was the one who wrote it. So it would be nice for Git to simply go like, hey, I would like to take these 2 commits, merge them into a single commit, and then push it to a branch, and then have Git be able to be like, okay, cool, here's the command. And here, like, here's how you, or at least describe how, like, here's how you do the interactive rebase, whatever. So they give you the command. You try to push it. Ooh, you used rebase. You're going to need a force push, and Git's going to be able to explain it to you because hopefully whatever we build is going to be able to explain it to you, because Git's just going to give you a scary red error message back. And so this way you can be like, okay, here's what I need to do. Because like there's a Git GUI, but a lot of the time people come in and hit teams that refuse to use the GUI, that only want to use the CLI. And it would be nice to just kind of like ease that transition from maybe whatever you're using at school to actually feeling like you're using the tools that everybody else is already using, and Git isn't terrifying, and you don't lose your data because you back it up on a different branch. So that is what we are working on currently.
Well, thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions? Last call for questions. Oh, there we have a couple. Go ahead. I don't have a microphone up here for you.
Hello. My question is for, sorry, I forgot your name, but my question is for the person who works in Microsoft and Rand. You worked in cybersecurity and you worked in software engineering. Should someone apply to a software engineering or cybersecurity job if they don't have the experience? If not, should they do like a boot camp, or should they like self-learn? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Just a quick follow-up question. When you say don't have experience, do you mean no coding at all, or?
Yeah.
I would say actually have built something originally, because that'll show that you have the capacity to learn. Like, it does not matter if you don't have a degree. The boot camps can sometimes be scams, just like heads up. But if you have something built that you can show an interviewer, that you can like pump on your resume, it's like, hey, I don't have any formal experience, but yo, did I learn it on my own? Like, imagine what I could do with some extra training.
And I would say on the cybersecurity side, I think it's important to recognize like cybersecurity is a big field at this point, right? I work every day with lawyers and policymakers, people who are not technical but are very much, you know, in cybersecurity. So it depends a little bit, of course, on what you want to do, and the more technical things you want to do, likewise, doing it on your own, reading, watching videos, all helps. But I would not tell anybody not to go into the field if there's an alignment between their skills and the things that they're interested in, because there's probably a fit for you somewhere in that stack.
Okay, one more question there. Sorry.
There we go. Okay. So this is a really specific question about what you were talking about for Microsoft with the CLI. Is that going to be like an internal product at Microsoft for Microsoft employees only, or would that be potentially something that's released? Because like as someone who's, like GitHub, like different branches forking, like sometimes it can be a bit of a nightmare. So I just want to know if that's something I should look forward to, or is that something I should like I don't want to get disappointed,
Unfortunately, that is definitely going to be here's a GitHub link, and then you have to go to that Reddit post where it tells you how to get everything installed, and everyone's a stinky dev, just give me an exe. So it would be, hopefully it'll be something easily packaged, but not an official Microsoft product, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll take one last one. Yeah, just pass. Our judges are mobile up here.
Hello? Okay. You may have talked about this a bit, but I'd just be interested to hear more since this is a tech and policy hackathon. What do the careers look like that involve the intersection of those two things? I'd be interested specifically in hearing more about cybersecurity roles that would work both with policy and with technology, but hearing about that in any realm would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I work every day, similar probably to the other folks on the panel, with exactly as you mentioned, lawyers, policy folks, IT guys. We have, big group meetings where everyone is discussing big picture topics together. A lot of it is literally like actual policy, like what do we have written down on a piece of paper about how we're going to use generative AI within the government, and like refining that, understanding how it works with our legal team, with our procurement folks, with our in-house creatives, whatever it might look like. So I think, there's a lot of roles that tend to be a little bit more nebulous, like maybe advisor roles, or maybe, a director of a policy, of digital policy, something like that just sort of exists somewhere. But I think there's discussions being had all the time, especially as internet and digital spaces have evolved so much in the last 10 years that it's so unavoidable to have every element of government and civic life just tied to something digital. And so there's always big discussions about those kinds of things happening constantly.
Yeah, and I guess I would add that, so at RAND, RAND is the policy FFRDC, so federally funded research and development center. So, government funds these centers kind of around the country. Some of them focus on engineering, whatever. RAND's gig is policy. Now, they hire technologists like me because of all the reasons that were just mentioned, right? Because the government wants to know, how should we be using AI better? What should we be doing to help support cybersecurity and the firms that we're buying our stuff from, whatever it is. And in that role, policy is essentially kind of in some sense what I do every day, what the folks around me do every day. Now, it can vary from, the analysts that are kind of crunching the data to provide the evidence that's going to back that policy, all the way up to, the lawyers or the people who can write much better than I can to make sure that our reports go out and are speaking to the right audience and are hitting the right marks. And so, yes, I would say the space is quite varied, and RAND is certainly not the only player in there, but I'm of course, partial.
Even the big specific tech companies have a lot of roles. I have a friend, it's hard to know what, I don't know if you're looking for what to search on LinkedIn, because there's a lot of different titles for that, but I know some of you guys are from law school. There are, most big companies have lawyers that are there for the cybersecurity space. I have a friend who does cybersecurity that's a program manager, so she's working directly with customers to improve their actual cybersecurity stuff, and she's working on a regular, a discrete product. And then there are the people in most companies that are in charge of just making sure that the company is not doing anything hateful. For example, there is a list at Microsoft that is extremely exhaustive that will scan everyone's code to make sure that there are no words that could possibly be offensive in any language. It is, there's a lot, but it's good, it's cool. And so there needs to be someone in there to stop like actual hate, and there needs to be someone in there to like actually make sure that stuff is like good to go. Like there are whole cybersecurity teams in there that are drafting the policies.
All right, well, that's all the time we have today. So join me in thanking the judges again for lending their expertise and time. Thank you, guys. Just pass this over to. Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you feeling? Oh, come on, I need a little vibe shift. Come on. First of all, let's give ourselves another round of applause. You did a lot of work, a lot of teamwork, and working in teams comes with its own challenges, I think we all know, and put together some really amazing presentations in a very short amount of time. So I think you should be a little proud of that. I'm Dr. Briss, and I have sent a lot of emails to the folks in this room, so thank you for putting up with me. I am the program manager for the Grafenstedt Center for Ethics here at Duquesne. So we are coming rapidly toward the conclusion of our program today. But before we do that, and before I go through all the really important thank yous, and we announce the awards, we would like to take one big group photo. Is everybody cool with that? Awesome. Okay, so I do believe we're gonna all, would coming to the front of the room be the best option for that? No, everybody. Where do you think we should go? I need the photographer to direct this. Oh. Oh, some magic is about to happen. Cool. Should they just stay seated? Yeah, oh yeah, I guess. Yeah, and all organizers, judges, advisors, we're all gonna get in.
However, it looks a little empty. You guys want to scooch? Wherever you're sitting, move. Like, I got this first row empty.
Oh yeah, fill in the front row.
Fill in that front row, get in there. That's a little bit better. All right, everybody sit up nice and tall. All right, leave your splash on the flail. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. Okay, I got everybody.
Thank you. All right, thanks everyone. As I mentioned earlier, we just need to say our thank yous because a lot of folks contributed to making today work. And I really appreciate all of the energy and the time that everyone put into it. So I should say also on behalf of John Slattery, who's the executive director of the Grafenstedt Center for Ethics, he's not with us today in person, but he is watching us on the live stream. So everybody say, hi, Dr. Slattery. Yeah, okay, cool. All right. So on his behalf, we want to thank everyone who attended today, both in person and watching our live stream. We want to thank our most generous and esteemed advisors and judges. Can I get a wave from any and all advisors and judges who are still in the room? Yes, thank you so much. Yeah. Right, they provided guidance and critical feedback to you all over the course of the development of your projects. So we really appreciate them volunteering to do that. And Hacking for Humanity is a collaborative effort, so we want to humbly thank the folks at the following organizations: Pitt Cyber, the Institute for Cyber Law, Policy, and Security; the Sarah Fine Institute at the University of Pittsburgh; the Center for Applied Research on Targeted Violence, which is a partnership of Pitt and CMU; the Community College of Allegheny County, our new partner this year, and we're so happy that they joined us, and especially the Computer Information Technology programs; and the Center for Informed Democracy and Social Cybersecurity at CMU, and research at CMU, and also known as the IDEAS Center. Okay, let us also not forget everybody you've seen running around here today: catering and conference and event services. They do so much work to help us run these events. So I really want to say a heartfelt thank you to them for feeding us and providing tremendous support. Okay, and then obviously the folks who probably make the biggest contribution are our amazing student policy creators and tech developers, whose innovative and inspiring solutions for countering online hate we were so privileged to hear today. The work you've put in and the outputs that you've produced are resonant, consequential, and material. We hope that you'll continue to develop and eventually implement the projects that you shared with us today. And I know that, these things can kind of happen and then drop off, maybe you don't revisit them, but one way that you could hold yourself, kind of accountable to staying with your projects if you want, or thinking about other ways to develop them, is to consider submitting your work as a research poster presentation at the Greffenstadt Center for Ethics Fall Tech Ethics Symposium. So I can, send you all the info on that. I know you're like, I've had enough of your emails, but would love to keep you in the loop. And that's a great opportunity to keep up your work in the area of tech ethics. So if you aren't on the Greffenstadt Center's email list, which is slightly separate from how I've been communicating with you so far, please make sure to stop at the registration desk on the way out and just sign a sign-in sheet. Even if you were a presenter today, there's another sign-in sheet where you can check the box to be put on our email list. So I'll keep you apprised of that opportunity. And our Tech Ethics Symposium will take place in November this year, so more to come on that. Another opportunity that we have, if you are interested, again, in this sort of broad area of tech ethics, is the Greffenstadt Center through, its programming offers courses. And so we have a digital, I'm sorry, I'm going to forget the name of it. I have it. It's AI and Digital Ethics Micro-Credential. So that's a 3-course sequence, 9 credits. Anyone can take it, undergrad, grad, or folks who are general public. If you're interested in earning a micro-credential in AI and digital ethics, that's another way you can sort of stay with this program. And all that info is also available through our communication channels and also on our website, which is duq.edu/ethics. All right, so the last kind of cool thing that I want to mention is that this year's hackathon winners are invited to compete in a mini competition at the governor's residence in Harrisburg in March. And so this is an excellent opportunity to continue improving on your presentations from today and to meet and network with officials in Harrisburg, in particular the First Lady of PA, Lori Shapiro, will be there. Okay, that's enough from me. I have given you all the thank yous and all the wrap up. And so now it's time to announce the awards from today. So I'm going to hand it over to Beth Schwanke to announce today's winners in the policy track, and Rachel Nealon, who will announce today's winners in the tech track. And then my last note is, please, for all winners, judges, advisors, and organizers to stick around. We're going to take your picture again before you head out here. So thank you for a wonderful event today, and I hope you're looking forward to a wonderful weekend.
All right, thank you, Mia, and we all owe Mia a huge thanks because she has put in so much work getting to this day. But before Rachel and I announce the winners, one thing we want to ask is, the awards, one thing we want to ask is that when we do call your team name, to just please come up and step aside, and we'll need to get some information and photos and things like that. And I want to say that, you know, we had the privilege of listening to the judges debate and discuss, as well as your presentations. And this was not easy. You guys did such a fabulous job, and judges, you were so thoughtful in thinking through, you know, how these awards should go. So please know that you guys all did a truly incredible job. So I'm going to start with the policy track. Honorable mention for Green Eggs and Hamlet. Great job, guys. And Facilio, congratulations on first place.
In the tech track, it was a long discussion for the tech track, lots of great projects. We had 2 honorable mentions and 1 first prize. The 2 honorable mentions go to Team Barney Dinosaur and Code Breakers. And the first place award on the tech track goes to Parakeet Clouds. So winners, stick around for information and get pictures, but otherwise, thank you everybody for coming out.